I bought my house in January 2020. I was 23 then, and I paid the down payment of 50% from personal savings and 50% from gifts from my family. I live in a city about 2 hours away from my parents. Obviously, the global issue happened, and in July 2020, my older brother, James, started working as a doctor in the hospital near me. I was living alone, and he had just gone through a breakup. I thought it would be nice for us to live together. Subsequently, in September 2022, my younger sister started a new course in a city. Initially, she was commuting from my parents and staying a few nights a week with me. After a while, this got too much and she moved in. I love my siblings. I like living with them. But is it all a bit much? I might as well live with my parents at this point, and it's all getting a bit much worse, as the family seems involved in everything. The final straw is that both my siblings now have partners, as do I. So regularly there are 6 of us, and like everyone has jobs and money, we don't need to all be in one house. My boyfriend is moving in. My house is in a better location and is nicer than his apartment. I've asked my siblings if they could move out by the end of summer, September. At first they were both fine with this. However, now James has said he doesn't understand why I don't just move in with my boyfriend rather than kick out my brother and sister. My sister has subsequently said it's not fair because my parents helped pay for this house. So my query is, am I the idiot for asking them to move out? Edit. The gift didn't come from my siblings but from my parents and grandparents. My older sister also received the same amount. My siblings who live with me would get it if they bought a property. They pay rent, it's below market, and I don't include bills. But I obviously never want to take advantage, especially when they were or are both early in their careers. Not the idiot. Excuse me, James? You think OP should move out? Sis thinks it's not fair? It's time to cut the cord. Give them all the legally required notice and tell them to go. It's time for adults to adult in their own homes. James is a doctor, so I'm sure he can afford to move into his own place. This is your home. They need to leave. The nerve of him telling you to move out of your own home. WTH. The words, "Why don't you move out?" actually came out of his mouth. He could have offered to take over the lease of your boyfriend's place. Has he and your sister forgotten that you own this home? Yeah, no. They need to go. They think that because your parents and grandparents paid half, that they're entitled to your house. No, that was a gift to you, not to them. And they need to get lost in that logic. You're not moving out. They need to. If anyone in the family would tell me that, and I paid for the down payment myself, I would laugh in their faces and tell them to GTFO. OP, 6 people living there, and you pay the utilities for everyone? Nope. Siblings need to hit the road. Give them 30 days. You've been more than generous. My sister Amelia has 2 children, Theo, tween, and Tony, preschooler. Tony was born with a disability, which means he has very high support needs, and this is something that was discussed before birth. Amelia split up with her ex, Brad, over this, while she was still pregnant. Brad pays child support for both children, but only has partial custody of Theo. Both Amelia and Brad should have done a better job of protecting Theo from the realities of the divorce. Unfortunately, he's well aware that they split up because of issues surrounding Tony, and this has caused problems. As a child of divorce, I can understand. Everyone's quality of life declined as a result of the divorce. He hates Tony, blames Amelia, and only wants to be at his dad's with his step-siblings. Watching my sister become a shell of herself and her relationship with Theo sour on both sides has been painful. It's easy to say he's just behaving badly, which he is, but she's run out of patience with him and gives him no grace regarding his valid feelings. At the end of last year, Theo's teacher called his parents over a creative writing assignment in which he expressed some thinly veiled feelings about Tony, and the teacher was concerned. Theo is now in therapy. This incident prompted Brad to take Theo's begging to live with him full-time seriously, and he's now suing for full custody, and Amelia's fighting it. She asked me to write a character reference for her, and I said no. I was honest that I didn't feel comfortable advocating against Theo's wishes. especially when I've seen firsthand how they're both struggling with how things are. Amelia was furious, saying I was a bad sister for not helping her, and that if she couldn't even get one person who thought she was a good enough mother to keep seeing her son, then she would lose him. She also said if Theo gets his way now, she will not be able to repair their relationship. I understand all of that, but how I see it, her having him around damages the relationship. More importantly, I don't have any right to say Theo should be somewhere he doesn't want to be. I love him and spend as much time with him as possible, but I'm not qualified, professionally or personally, to know what's best for him. I said all this to Amelia, but all she heard was that I wouldn't help her keep her child. Our mom and stepdad also said no, and she's no longer speaking to any of us. The only person who said yes is our dad, but he barely knows the kid. He only said yes because he's just the ride or die type. And he's a flake, so I doubt he'll ever actually send the letter. The point is, I don't think Amelia's a bad mother, but I just don't feel right putting my name to something I don't feel sure about, even if I may contribute to an outcome she didn't want. Does that make me the idiot? Edit. To clarify, Brad wanted to terminate, which they'd previously agreed to do when family planning, but Amelia changed her mind when the time came. They split up over this. Not the idiot. Your sister isn't putting Theo's best interest first, and is instead making her own the priority. It's a terrible situation and messy, but it's not a mess you have to clean up. It's not right for her to try to guilt you into this. It's awful that she's losing her child like this, but if nobody would write that letter for her, it's kind of telling that it's the right choice for Theo. You did your best in an impossible situation. Your sister's hurt, but that's not actually on you. So, is it in the best interest of the child to give full-time custody to the parent who already abandoned, custody-wise, one child? He left her to parent their disabled child, didn't help at all, and as a result, had the more appealing home, and now wants to cherry-pick the healthy one. It's parental alienation, just in an indirect way. It's not parent alienation. Some people cannot cope with disabilities, and having a disabled child is hard work, and having a child you resent is not healthy. He would have been a bad father to Tony because he didn't want him. It sounds like Amelia went ahead with the pregnancy because that's what she wanted, and she didn't consider her husband or her other child. That's just selfish, and now she's reaping what she sowed. The thing is, Amelia neglected Theo for Tony. Obviously, he wants to stay with the parent he sees as prioritizing him. So I, teen male, still live with my family, obviously. I have chores just like my siblings, but cooking is something I do for fun and because I love and have a passion for it. I started cooking for myself 3 years ago. I had cooked before, but nothing like the last 3 years. I enjoy making breakfast, dinner, and even lunch if I have no school. My parents saw I was cooking more, and they added that to my list of chores, because Mom said they didn't want to waste food, and Dad said it was rude to cook for only one person. And I didn't mind cooking for everyone, but they were so darn ungrateful. My siblings and parents alike. Complaints I got were too spicy, wanted potatoes instead of rice, wanted rice instead of noodles, wanted beef instead of chicken, wanted something plain instead of spicy, wanted no veggies, wanted a more veggie-focused meal, wanted lasagna instead of pasta bake, didn't want soup, didn't like the flavor of soup, didn't want something sweet, wanted something sweet, changed mine and wanted meat well done, wanted more kinds of potatoes. And the list goes on. None of this was constructive either. It was whining and complaining. And I started asking what I should do. However, everyone wanted something different, and I'm still in school. I can't spend 6 hours cooking dinner on a school night, so my siblings can have pizza, fries, nuggets, and tacos, and my parents can have steak and potatoes and gravy, and all the trimmings, or none of the trimmings, but 5 different kinds of potatoes. I even made a weekly meal plan for a while, and they would only complain after they ate it. I spoke to my family about how they were behaving, and my mom told me that that's the reality of cooking for a family. She said my siblings and dad have always been like that with her. I pointed out I hadn't been, and she just said that. And she said, yeah, but it's a part of life. I told her, So she decided to treat me worse than I treated her? She told me I was being difficult, and I told her no. She was taking everyone else's behavior out on me. A few times my dad or one of my siblings would say I wasn't a very good cook, and they hated eating my food. So I said I wouldn't cook anymore. And Dad and Mom would get angry and my siblings would call me lame. So I stopped cooking for them. I just cooked for me again. And my parents are furious. They all come home hungry and I have nothing ready for them, not even my siblings. My parents told me it was disrespectful, and I could not continue. I said they were all the disrespectful and ungrateful ones, crapping all over what I made for them. They told me I shouldn't be okay with letting them go hungry, and I said they all deserved to go hungry. My parents said it was a disgusting attitude, and they grounded me for 2 weeks. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You're a minor. It's your parents' responsibility to take care of you. Cooking is a wonderful interest, and I hope your enjoyment is not ruined by your family's behavior. It's one thing to share your dishes alongside the rest of the food during meals, but another entirely to be responsible for all your family members. Unfortunately, at your age, there's not much you can do here. Once you have a part-time job and start buying your own groceries, they can't complain about it being a waste of food. To some extent, people being ungrateful and complaining about food is a fact of life. I'd expect that from siblings and kids, but not your parents. They're acting like children. They should be encouraging you and supporting your hobby, but instead they use you and treat you badly. I disagree. She said my siblings and dad have always been like that with her. It sounds like your father started this behavior, which your siblings then modeled. The simple solution is that your father cooks, since nobody else does it to his standards. Your mom had the option to not marry your father, unless he changed that behavior, and to teach her kids when they were little about acceptable ways to talk to her about food. She chose not to. You don't have that kind of control over how everyone comes to the table, so all you can do is refuse. You're not responsible for this nasty atmosphere that she's allowed around food. If your parents can't clean up the mess they've allowed, they don't get to offload the problem onto you. I, 19 male, live with my dad, since my mom cheated on him with my uncle. Still, I see my uncle every few weeks, but only because he lives with my grandparents, and I don't want to go no contact with them. My dad agrees, saying I should be stoic to the guy when I visit. Mom's no longer in the picture, having left my uncle for someone else. Haven't seen her for months now. My dad gave me a credit card last year, saying that I could use it for meals. I'm also allowed to buy one new book each week. Today I bought The Maze Runner. Then I had lunch and went to my grandparents' house, where, as usual, I ignored my uncle and talked to my grandparents. My uncle usually ignores me as well, but not today. He asked me why I wasted money buying the book when I already had the movie. Then he said my dad should have taught me better about money management. Then the guy also said that I'm too old for the book. I said the stuff listed in the title of this post. Didn't raise my voice at him or anything. Just looked at him right in the eyes and said it. My grandparents told me I didn't have to be rude to him and that he's still my elder. They said I should be polite to him for their sake, saying I should have greater self-control at my age. Not the idiot. Tell your grandparents that if their son had greater self-control at his age, maybe he wouldn't have slept with his brother's wife, and maybe he wouldn't still be living with his parents. Besides, the books are always better than the movies. This was my first thought. How do his grandparents not see their son's lack of self-control, yet criticize the grandchild for asserting themselves in a measured response? Elder or not, you're 19 and have the right to express your feelings towards someone. You can tell someone you don't want their advice and tell someone not to talk to you. That's not being rude. It's establishing boundaries. Update. I went back to their place today. I told my grandparents I understand they don't want to see their grandson being hostile to their son. But then I reminded them that the guy betrayed my dad in the worst way possible, and that the guy who couldn't keep it in his pants and committed the terrible betrayal has no business criticizing my dad for anything. Then I looked at him and told him that I could manage money better than he could manage cheating. He looked pretty mad and called me insolent. I told him I didn't want any advice from a guy who slept with his brother's wife and still lived with his parents at 47 because he was too lazy to do his own laundry and cook his own meals. I've been with my husband for 7 years. For the first 3 years of our relationship, his mother lived in Canada, so we didn't see her often. After that, she moved back to our home state, New Jersey. Her birthday is 2 weeks before Mother's Day, and we always ended up bringing her out for her birthday. My husband, despite us not being able to afford it, treats her to a meal, and then on Mother's Day, the same thing. We let her pick the restaurant and we'll treat her to a meal. For the past 2 years, I've told my husband that I'm honestly fed up with doing this. I told him that we should be considering her birthday dinner to be a part of her Mother's Day gift, since it's so close to the same date, and that, for once, I would like him to give me a special Mother's Day. Last year I was so upset about it, because all he got from me on Mother's Day was $12 storage bins for our kitchen, and then we shipped right off to treat his mom to a $120 meal. He said he would make sure my Mother's Day was special this year. Well, he was online searching for a gift for his mother for Mother's Day, so I assumed that would be the only thing he did for her this year. He typically doesn't buy her gifts and just brings her out to eat. The necklace he got her was $130-ish because he got it engraved. But this morning she called him, and he said, "Well, start planning where you want to go out to eat on Mother's Day so I can plan ahead." I just immediately felt gutted. I loaded up the kids and went to the playground. He called me 20 minutes later and asked where I had gone, so I told him I went to the playground. He asked which one and said he would come down, and I told him I wanted space. When he asked why, I told him it was because, once again, he's doing all this for his mom on Mother's Day, on top of already getting her an expensive gift. So I know for a fact I'm going to be left in the dust per usual. I was extremely hurt that he told me it wouldn't happen this year, and he went against that. He tried arguing that it's for both of us. Still, she literally gets the choice of the restaurant every single time. I'm basically ignored the entire time I'm there and left to deal with the kids while he's chatting it up with his mother. I could understand if she wasn't around often and that this was their chance to reconnect, but she's here nearly every other day. He says I was being ridiculous and said, "How do you know I didn't plan something for you too?" So I asked him if he had, and he said, "Well, no, but I can." I told him to forget about it, and in a petty rage stated that I would just get over it, accept being an afterthought, and hung up. I then called up my girlfriend, and we planned to go out on Mother's Day. I haven't been out in over a year. Well, I just got home, and my husband said he had something in mind that I might enjoy. I told him not to bother, as he and his mom would be in charge of the kids for the day, and that I would be treating myself to a girl's day. He now says I'm wrong because I didn't give him a chance. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Good for you. I hope you have a great time. While doing something for his mother on Mother's Day is expected, the primary focus should be on his wife, the one who birthed both his children. He could have taken you all out for brunch, given his mother a gift, and then spent the rest of the day with you, dinner, a show, and whatever you into. These are the ways to balance things, if he actually cared. OP, you gave him several years of chances to do something that makes you feel special too, and he failed miserably. Enjoy your Mother's Day with your friends and your littles. Also, tell your husband he can expect the same amount of energy and thought to go into Father's Day, his birthday, and any other special occasion. He might get the drift. And make sure you're out of the house before they can leave the kids with you and spoil your plans.